surprising to find names and numbers of people not related to the deceased at certain tombs. At an era before name cards were popularized, tomb masons came up with a cheeky way to publicize their skills.
What deepened his suspicion was an unusual entry in the burial registry of Bukit Brown Cemetery.
Somebody was looking through the archives, looking at the burial records, and bam, you get an entry there that specifically says 4 soldiers. Is it still there? Are the lads still in the ground? Who were those soldiers? In theory, they could be some of those Suffolk lads who were brought together and buried in one site. We can't afford to ignore it. We've got to identify it. We've got to follow it up. And if there's a chance of finding missing soldiers, that would be fantastic.
With renewed vigour, John seeks Raymond Goh's help to track down tomb 340, where 4 fallen British soldiers may possibly be buried. Raymond zeroes in on the cluster with ease, but the search would not come to be today, as the overgrown grounds would need to be cleared. Each step forward raises John's anticipation of locating the fallen soldiers.
I think the most heart-wrenching side of it is the missing guys. The guys who crawled out into the bushes here on the evening of the 14th in the pitch black with the wounds, and they were never seen again. They had no account of them. Their names appear up on the war memorial at Kranji. There's no graves for them. And they're out here still, we assume. Who's moved them, who's picked them up, where they're buried, we don't know. And the chance to actually find a couple of these guys, identify them, and get them named, and get their sacrifice known, and take them up to Kranji and lay them with their mates, well, that would be a sensational thing for us to find.
15th February 1942, General Percival made the difficult decision of surrendering Singapore to the Japanese. The defeat of the battle at Bukit Brown, coupled with the loss of the Thompson water pump, proved to be the last straw for the Allied command. Shortly after the Japanese seized Singapore, they carried out the terrifying Suqing massacre.
Well, the impetus for a massive screening early in the Japanese occupation for anti-Japanese elements was imperative as far as the Japanese army was concerned. I know there's opposition. I got to weed out and screen the entire male population.
After weeding out dissenters, the Japanese army next turned their attention to the prominent Chinese leaders in Singapore for a different agenda.
The Japanese authorities and Shinozaki, they were looking for a man of influence who would command the respect and the leadership to run the Overseas Chinese Association. And Shinozaki had already heard of Dr. Lim Boon Keng, and he approached Dr. Lim to lead the organization.
Dr. Lim Boon Keng was a prominent doctor, reformist, and philanthropist in early 20th century Singapore. In 1921, he was asked by Mr. Sun Yat-sen to be the president of the University of Amoy, a position he held until the outbreak of the Sino-Japanese War in 1938. Taking on the role as the president of the Overseas Chinese Association would prove to be a challenge for Dr. Lim. His first task at hand was to handle an astronomical extortion from the Japanese to the sum of $50 million to atone for their anti-Japanese support in China.
Managed to raise 50%, about 27 million, and the other half was extended in the form of a loan by the Yokohama Specie Bank. With a total of $50 million, the OCA, through Dr. Lim Boon Keng as president, made the presentation at a ceremony in Fullerton Building on the 2nd floor to General Yamashita.
Dr. Lim Boon Keng bowed to the demands of the Japanese in a bid to save his countrymen, but much to the detriment of his relationship with the British.
After the war, the British rounded up all the collaborators, and Lim Boon Keng was being a mastermind in the OCA. He was the leading person to be charged by the British for being a collaborator. Lim Boon Keng was very annoyed. He said, "You British left and abandoned Singapore, and now you come back and you putting the blame on us as collaborators because we had to survive."
The British eventually exonerated Lim Boon Keng of all blame as a collaborator with the Japanese. Dr. Lim Soo Min is the great-grandson of Dr. Lim Boon Keng. He recounts some memories of his great-grandfather.
The memories primarily of Chinese New Year, visiting, kind old man with a white beard, usually in a white suit, sitting on his reclining chair, beaming beatifically at us, and his wife grandma in the background, being kind to us and giving us goodies and things like that. That's my main recollection. I do remember his passing away, one of the early childhood memories of death, and a big procession with lots and lots and lots of people.
While Soo Min clears the tombs of his ancestors from the Lim Boon Keng line, Raymond Goh paves the way for John Cooper.
I went to search the records again, and I suddenly found that 336, 337, 338, 339, 340
Yes.
is relocated to another area.
Imagine losing everything.